comes up for you when I say toxic masculinity?
Most of the time this person is so damaging to himself قبل أي حد تاني. So when we're in a space where we don't have the normal array of emotions اللي المفروض تبقى موجودة عند أي حد. So I'm supposed to be sadness and happiness and joy and all this. But the only thing you're familiar with is anger. Because you don't understand anything else.
In fact, men are quite emotional.
Yeah.
It's just the dominant emotion, as you were saying, often, unfortunately, is anger. And for some reason, that's not labeled as an emotion.
Our bodies do not forget what happens. Traumas and whatever stuff that we go through keeps building up جوانا, and it causes a lot of the issues. And this is pretty much anger.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of emotions that were not expressed or not felt enough. Like a huge part of therapy was understanding where's all this anger coming from, and just trying to get rid of that.
Yeah.
I was a completely different person في الحتة دي.
Hi, welcome to another episode of Sage Takes Time. I'm really happy to be here today with Mohamed. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode. I'm Amira, and today I'm going to be talking to my good friend and the extended Wamina family, Mohamed, about so many things that he does that are very important in the mental health space and in other areas of life as well. احنا كده في الأول يعني ممكن تعرفنا عن نفسك. What do you do?
Okay. مبدئيا محمد Elma'andi. The mental health part, هتكلم عليها أكتر شوية, but in 2016 specifically, I was 9 years into my corporate job, and I realized, there was so much pressure, there was so much things that we need to do in life, and I'm not able to cope or to continue في نفس اللاين بتاعت كل الناس اللي حواليا. So the pressure builds up. I did not have a name for it back then, but that was obviously a lot of depression. Anxiety and a lot of things. It was so much pressure. I needed to change so much to adapt. I needed to become very materialistic to cope, to be able to survive في الحتة اللي أنا كنت فيها بنفس الطريقة اللي الناس اللي حواليا عايشينها. And I know a lot of men around me that were going through the same thing, but none of us maybe didn't have the courage, didn't have the encouragement to do this from other people as well. So it took me some time to understand كمية damage that happened because of that, but I got to a point where this is a waste of life. I'm not doing anything. I'm not helping myself. I don't know what I'm doing with my life. And it becomes, when you're completely bland and there's no emotions anywhere, you know that you're, خلاص, I need to get help. I accepted that and I started therapy because I got pushed by a friend, thankfully.
Was it difficult for you to أصلاً think of that I might need therapy and that I have to go?
Of course.
Yeah.
So much resistance because I think subconsciously أنا كنت بحاول protect نفسي because any changes to where I was is scary, because when we say the comfort zone, which is one of the very toxic things, I was used to the place where I'm not happy, but it felt familiar. It's a long story. ليه رحت الدكتورة مش أخصائية, but I understood the difference بعدين. فضلت مثلا 15 minutes in the beginning trying to tell her, you know what, I'm not here because I trust you. I don't think I believe in therapy to start with. I'm only here because my friend told me to come. Matter of fact is, maybe I felt, this will make me look weak. So I come from that space. If people think because I was a regional brand manager, had a large team, a lot of people around me that look up to me, but then لو هم شافوا إنه معاندي ضعيف أو عنده مشكلة أو اسمها مشكلة نفسية بالنسبة لناس كتير، أنت عندك مرض نفسي أو عندك you're struggling through حاجة, I'm assuming people will see you differently, but this was me judging myself for not being able to get through this من غير ما أطلب مساعدة من حد.
Right.
Yeah.
You were judging yourself even before there was a space for other people to potentially judge you or accept you. And
I judge myself first.
Yeah.
So they don't. So you do this some sort of in a way to protect yourself, but you don't really know that this is happening. But I would come up with all the excuses في العالم إن أنا ما أعملش الشغل اللي عليه, because again, I just want to stay in that space of not getting anything done or being completely helpless.
Before you go on, sorry, I want to ask something about the idea of I was in corporate and then I left, because this is something we often hear with entrepreneurs, with people that are doing some inner work and mental health. But you said it's not just that. يعني, it wasn't just the job or the work that you were doing in the space you were in that made you feel certain ways. or was it يعني is it like that space off because you were unhappy there so you were able to reflect فاهم قصدي يعني the starting point.
Okay, I think sometimes we put so much pressure on the job.
Yeah.
But I've learned something very, very, very important when we were doing actually one of the incubators for startups, because we would do rounds of mental health talks with the teams, and a lot of people would blame everything that's going wrong with their lives on the job.
So.
But when you ask them, when they take a second to think, where is this coming from? It has absolutely nothing to do with the job. So this is something that we're carrying for the last God knows how long, and we find something to blame it on. But the job doesn't have to be the stress. So I always tell people this. I was lucky to be in a very decent company. People were incredible. But again, the 9 to 5 is not for me. So it could have been so much less pressuring if I didn't have كل العك اللي كان جاي من حياتي قبل كده. So this was maybe 10-15% of why I was not okay.
Yeah, I think that's important عشان انت برضو in the beginning you said this is not an invitation for everyone to quit. عشان برضو I don't want people to think there's an easy fix and like if you're unhappy and you work in corporate you have to leave because that's what everyone else is doing and there's much deeper issues which زي ما انت بتقول
اسمها toxic positivity كده اللي هو ايه ده انت متضايق من شغلك سيبه وروح حاجة تانية وهتلاقي
and if you quit you're like مبروك يلا join the rest of us we're all doing this cool stuff.
It's completely different struggles. I mean 10 of my very close friends that I would never advise them to leave their jobs. They need the fixed job, they need the stability, it works for them.
Yeah, so people don't realize how much running your own thing, whether it's a company or a business, whether you have a team or on your own, that is also a different kind of stress. So it's not like you're escaping one thing, you're still going to have to learn how to manage work and life and all the other stuff.
Yeah. When you realize, probably a huge part of what we go through and how we operate ومخنا شغال ازاي and the struggles that we go through and what our very personal traits are وكل الحاجات الصح والغلط اللي فينا was already shaped when we were kids. You realize the damage is not necessarily because of it's the last 5-6 years 1 to 3 things happen. These are probably a repetition of what we've been through as kids. Yeah. So for someone that has trust issues, for example, someone that's defensive all the time, you've developed this trait since you were a little kid because 90% of our brain was formed by the time we were 7 or 8. So we've been through something that when we were kids, والحاجة دي فضلت معانا and it shaped who we are today. So that only is discoverable through therapy. So I didn't know 90% of the issues that I had. I didn't know إنه أنا كنت شخص عصبي جدا مثلا. Seriously. Because sometimes you don't really ask, you don't really want to know. So you pretend like you're okay, you're not part of the damage. You're not the person that's actually causing اللخبطة والزعيق والدوشة وانت الشخص اللي الناس ساعات بتخاف منك شوية because sometimes people don't want to tell you this.
هل كنت حاسس ان انت ساعات you display like physical manifestations of anger
طبعا
ما كنتش حاسس بنفسك
100%
والناس ما كانتش بتقول لك
100%
yeah
because think of it this way برضو if you're going through حاجة you know there's something wrong right but you're afraid of tapping into الحاجة دي you would push people away like you wouldn't want people to tell you. You wouldn't want to be إذا أنا بشتكي أو إن أنا بقول حاجة هتقلل مني قدام نفسي. So I did a lot of effort into actually pushing people away. And a lot of people would be struggling with mental health issues would do exactly the same. Because I just want to be alone. So it will actually هترسخ الحاجات اللي في مخك أكتر هتخليكي ما تشتغليش عليها أكتر. You would only find out when you go to therapy. So that anger ابتدى بقى يطلع في حتت كتير أوي في جسمي حتى it's called psychosomatically. So when your مشاكل نفسية ابتدت تطلع في الجسم كمشاكل جسدية. كان عندي قولون which is obviously nothing physical. هو اسمه قولون عصبي عشان هو مشاكل نفسية كتير أوي. And I think دي كانت من الحاجات اللي ابتدت تخليني أقتنع إن هو I need to get help. Because 10 years ago I was a lot less healthy than today.
Physically. Yeah. And mentally and physically as well.
100%.
You mentioned early on the idea that there's a lot of men going through this. There's a lot of men that like have things that they haven't worked on كده. And given that we are Womina and the work we do is very like much storytelling with a feminist lens, but we always talk about how it's not for just women. It's the idea of like feminism or tackling or fighting back against the patriarchy are things that harm both men and women, the structures and the way the world works and society and expectations وكده. Can you talk more about that from the male perspective, like things you have experienced and things you see around you?
اللي بيحصل في العالم بالنسبة للرجالة مقارنة بالستات. So fatalities of mental health issues and men are actually a lot more than women. Yeah, for very obvious reasons. So men don't talk. We're not allowed the space. I will say repeatedly, بنفس اللفظ كده, we're not allowed the space to express and share, to feel vulnerable. Yeah, 100%. It's inherited. It's like imprinted في مخنا that if you talk, you're going to be perceived this way or that way. And it's not from people around us. It's from ourselves. It comes from within. So any judgment في العالم will always have a deeply rooted belief system عندنا إحنا شخصيا من جوه. So there could be a lot more issues with women, but women are able to express and share so much better. And people that are in therapy, women are so much more than men. It happens subconsciously. It happens من غير ما يبقى فيه intention of harm. And it happens when we're kids. So when we talk about this so much, we realize إنه جزء كبير جدا من حل المشكلة, and it's not a responsibility as much as إنه it is so much easier for women to help men go through their mental health issues عن إن الرجالة يساعدوا الرجالة. So
wait, I'm gonna need you to explain.
Sure. Okay. So here's the thing. Most of what men do, there's so much of what we do, is because of the women around us. So our mothers, our partners, our wives. دي حاجة مهمة أوي. في حاجات صغيرة أوي زي إحنا بنلبس إيه وبنعمل إيه. So part of it is that. But also شكلنا عامل إزاي, بنتكلم إزاي. What defines us as men is a huge part of it. اتعرف لنا من وإحنا صغيرين من أمهاتنا.
Okay.
دور الراجل أو what's your masculine, المفروض الماسكلينيتي بتاعتك شكلها عاملة إزاي.
I'd like to add just a little, because this is something we were also talking about in another episode, so it's related. إنه the burden of caretaking and child raising and managing life and the household falls on women, whether they like it or not, and regardless 100%. Of the effect it has on them. So within that context, then what you're saying, yes, the end result is it is women that end up doing most of the raising and upbringing وكده.
Yeah.
يعني I kind of get what you mean. يعني this is where it comes from as a first source.
Yeah. I don't release men من الresponsibility بتاعتها خالص, but maybe I'm sharing a personal experience because my dad wasn't around most of the time برضو, so all I can remember is my mom telling me these things. الحمد لله إنه ما كانش الموضوع بالشكل اللي أنا بقوله أو مش بالعنف ده, but I remember that I had two sisters. I had to be, always كده واخد بالي من البيت.
Right.
So the expression of emotions was not very allowed. This is one thing. حاجة تانية, because this is an inside information of most of my men friends. Amongst our circles of men, سهل قوي إن إحنا نقعد نسف ونتريق على بعض. And we would never share something deep أو حاجة عنيفة قوي 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 unless there's something huge يعني. تخيل أنا رحت أصحابي وإحنا مثلا قاعدين على قهوة قاعدين في أي حتة وقلت لهم معلش يا جماعة أصلا عندي كتاب. متخيلة كمية السف اللي هتحصل؟
Yeah.
It happens, yeah.
I mean, honestly, I don't know.
Yeah.
This is, I hear this, but it's interesting to hear it as a first-hand
100%.
experience.
I still go through this لحد اللحظة دي في حياتي. That one person that is slightly ready to express or share to open up will find a group of women that will provide the space to be able to share and open up عن أي حاجة فيها مشاكل نفسية. So
female friends, maybe a partner, sister. Yeah.
Why? Because he knows, this is a safe space and you won't be judged for it. And you probably won't tell his male friends. But I get this from a lot of my girlfriends as well. So كل البنات اللي حواليا أصحابي إنه فلان وفلان 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 في الجروب بيروحوا يتكلموا معاهم لوحدهم. But they don't do this with us.
I can speak to that from the other side of having previous partners or friends that have struggled in these ways, and knowing that the conversations we have are not really had anywhere else, even though they have strong male relationships, but ما فيش السبيس ده موجود.
فما بنصدق obviously كل حد عايز يشارك open up محدش عايز يبقى عنده مشاكل كتير ويفضل قافل عليها لوحده. So it becomes much easier when we're, because shame and guilt and the feeling of كل العك ده بيروح when you're provided the safe space to be able to do that. So this is why it is so much easier if we have an adult male and we want to help him get help. إن هو أصحابه البنات يكلموه يقولوا له okay, so we understand, we're containing the situation, إحنا حابين إن إحنا نساعدك, so here's the tools. And this is what happened with me. So I had a lot of really close male friends that I knew were not able to help.
Okay.
But it's my female friends that were able to help.
Sorry, this is really interesting, Thyme. I'm going to dig a bit deeper before we like move on to another topic. Are you saying that, let's say we're a group of like friends وكده, فلو حاسين إن في a male among us that has issues or can use this help and this kind of conversation, that the women should gather and say, or are you saying it's just natural that you will find like the female friends and that support, that it's a safe space and so you tend to go to it? Is it an intentional space we're creating?
It shouldn't. It's not should, because obviously دي مش مسؤولية. يعني it's not women's job to do that.
Yeah.
I'm just saying it's easier to do that. So if our job is to create awareness, to have more people able to ask for help when they need it, to admit أصلاً إنهم عندهم مشكلة, it is so much easier for women to spread this للرجالة عن الرجالة للرجالة. Does it make sense?
It does make sense, but I think then the next question would be, what does that say about male relationships and the community that men have around them or lack thereof?
بخسر ناس كتيرة في الحتة دي
لا, but I think
okay.
مش من غير ما نخسر حد يعني. We're just having a transparent conversation, and I think it's very important. I'm learning from it, so I think men will surely learn from it as well.
Let's just say a lot of us cope in so many different ways, yeah? Because we could be struggling with a lot of things, but there's things around us that will continue to show that we're tough, but we're also close. So I'm not saying there's definitely very, 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 very strong male-to-male ties. في رجالة قريبين جدا 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 من بعض. But sometimes we do not scratch the surface بتاعت الحاجات اللي بتحصل في مشاكلنا النفسية في حياتنا في struggles. In a lot of the relationships it doesn't happen. So you'll find us talking a lot more about حاجات مضحكة جدا جدا. الريلز اللي ما بتخلصش اللي احنا بنقعد نبعتها لبعض.
Yes.
بنتكلم على حاجات تافهة كتير قوي قوي قوي. بنتكلم على تمرين وعضلات a lot of masculine energy in a conversation, yeah. So we don't have a feminine energy قوي في الحتة دي. الكلمة دي مستفزة الناس كتير قوي, but we're supposed to be emotional. We're supposed to, إمتى آخر مرة شفت راجل واحد صاحبي بيعيط قدامي؟ This might be more familiar to women than men, but to us sometimes it's very, very difficult. So the very few ones, because obviously I talk about mental health a lot.
Yeah.
في ناس كتيرة في حياتي مش مستريحين أو ما بقوش مستريحين قوي لما عندي اللي بيتكلم عن mental health ده, because to a lot of people أنت هتفتح لنا حاجات بقى مش عايزين نتكلم عليها.
عشان هم مش عايزين يتكلموا عليها أصلاً إن كوستر ولا they don't even want you, like أنت بلاش منك أصلاً يعني أنت you're triggering to them.
لا مش بيكنسلوني مش الشخص كله.
ما تجيش.
No, it's إنه we know that there's stuff happening. إحنا عارفين إن في مصيبة, but we're not ready to talk about it. And it's natural to a lot of people. But it is so much easier and we have so much more defense mechanisms around it. So we know exactly how to survive and to continue showing up من غير ما نبين إن في حاجة. And that's a lot of العلاقات الرجالة ببعض. طالما كلنا في نفس الحتة تمام. لو حد هيجي يشيك السيستم اللي احنا شغالين بيه اللي بنلصم بيه الدنيا ده, هتبقى مشكلة.
بس حتى دلوقتي with a lot more conversations happening around mental health and people working in this space that are also men and women, يعني حاسس إن في shift حصل. مثلا you were talking about a journey that started in 2016.
Yeah.
Now almost 10 years later, has there been a shift in these spaces and in these circles that you're noticing, and what has that shift been?
Yes, الحمد لله. يعني 2016 دي لما أنا قلت إنه يا جماعة أنا كان عندي اكتئاب وكنت بعمل كذا وكذا وكذا, دي كانت بالنسبة لي مصيبة, لأنه بجد في ناس في حياتي خسرتهم. Some people completely disappeared من حياتي because they do not want to talk about this. Yes. I realized, what, this is who I am. I need to talk about it. I know there's so many people struggling, so sharing that might actually save some lives. So this was the now it's not just ان احنا بقى عندنا مشاكل اكتر, في ناس كمان بتستراجل اكتر بكتير قوي, but thankfully زي ما انتي بتقولي بقى في acceptance اكتر للسبيس دي, انه men can actually talk about mental health من غير ما يبقى في نفس degrees of judgment, نفس degrees of, and sometimes we have to separate and isolate people from our lives. يعني I know a lot of my friends that are in therapy would still have issues مع أهاليهم, أو أهاليهم هيبقوا معترضين أصلاً على فكرة الثيرابي in general. So لسه في ضغط في المجتمع حوالينا ناحية إن إحنا نأدمت إن في لخبطة ونبتدي نروح للثيرابي أو نبتدي نساعد نفسنا. But I would say the pressure is a lot more on men في الحتة دي, especially if they have a family, they're supporting people وهكذا وهكذا. But it's so much better than what it used to be 8-9 years ago.
Yeah.
So thankfully بقى في الكالتشر دي, بقى في شركات أكتر بكتير قوي بيعملوا ده, فبقينا نعمل talks أكتر بكتير عن الحتة دي, بقى في actually more male specific events.
Tell us about the work you do in the mental health advocacy space.
Okay.
Because you're not a therapist or a life coach.
Very clearly not.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you do a lot of work in the mental health space. So
yes.
how did you get into it and what is that work?
حلو.
And tell us like the experience of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
هي مش title straightforward, so it takes a lot of explanation. But very simply, there's كلمة advocacy in general. So a lot of people would be really into a certain topic and they want to share knowledge about it and help people maybe get through it because you've been there. So, you know what, I've done 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe this will help you get through your journey. And that started very organically كده when I started therapy. And I posted about it in the sake of, you know what, I was in that space, I thought there's no hope. So, but, apparently there is, so maybe this helps you. This is what I've done.
Right.
So when I started doing this, I've received an insane amount of reactions. Hundreds of people have sent messages, they've shared very, very personal experiences, people I didn't know. Some of my really close friends started to open up.
Just by saying, I went through this.
Yes.
There is hope because this is what I did. On like online. بس not even like in a speech or motivational
Facebook.
TEDx بقى وكده.
زمان أول ما كنتش عارف كلمة viral دي, but apparently ده اللي حصل ساعتها. And because of how overwhelming this was, I realized I needed to educate myself because I was a patient. So I was someone going through therapy. I've tried so many things because of my trust issues. So I needed to validate CBT through DBT, through this and that and that and that. So I've tried so many things. But again, this is my personal experience. And in that journey, do I want to be a therapist? I'm like, no, this is not my job. There's so many therapists. My job is to اللير الأولانية خالص بتاعت we don't have the awareness. We don't know. So I know a lot of people are struggling, but they don't even know that this is called kaza, or maybe I can get help in this way. So I realized I needed to educate myself in that part. So how to talk to people, how to gather information from a lot of the credible resources اللي حوالينا, and then to curate that to maybe generate programs, retreats, talks, pretty much everything that I do. And that has become my job. So I don't want to, and I'm not qualified to diagnose anyone. This is not my job completely. And what I do is simply sharing the knowledge of what I've been through and guiding people through, if you need help, there's this person that you can go to. So we've developed a database of كل الدكاترة والأخصائيين اللي في مصر باللوكيشنز بتاعتهم بالأسعار بكل حاجة, and it's publicly accessible لأي حد. In the hope of this might actually help people start their journey of healing.
Yeah. So you don't just focus on the advocacy isn't just like raising awareness around men's mental health and the need to go. It's general. Yeah. And
it's easier for women, but
yeah. And so you do like retreats and you work with corporates. Like what are the spaces that you're invited to usually to talk about this, to raise awareness around schools, their friends? Like what is it?
What I've learned there's so many things that we can do to help ourselves. So getting therapy is one step of going to a therapist is definitely one important step of getting help, but there's also so many other things. So people need to be able to express, be able to share their emotions, to go out, leave their jobs, go into nature. And this is what I sort of create within the retreat space. So I think it's very important for people that don't have the awareness to experience different things, of ways of releasing, of expression, of being able to be in nature, to separate from where we are, to be mindful, to practice meditation. So this will actually give you the tools to be able to help yourself. It doesn't have to be, you need to go to therapy. So this happens perfectly in the retreat space. So it's not an ad for a retreat, خلاص, I'm not doing that. But it is magical for what I have experienced as someone attending retreats. So I got introduced to breath work, meditation, movement, a lot of the nature activities when you connected with how you would be mindful, how you'd be able to actually be closer to God when you're doing that. It is so powerful that I realized to a lot of people this is a lot more helpful than therapy. But also this option is always there. Other incubators would be, thankfully there's a lot of initiatives from the government. So we've been part of the World Youth Forum when it was initiated. So we were hosting a circle within the platform to be able to talk about mental health. And it's incredible to be able to work with a lot of therapists in that field. So there's so many people that share the same passion. So we create the program of what are we talking about today? So there would be a certain topic. And we've replicated that model across a lot of the therapy centers. So it's not just myself talking about this. There's definitely a lot more experiences. So maybe there's a therapist, there's a psychiatrist. Sometimes we have a life coach. Have people from different platforms sharing their knowledge with us. A lot of the events are actually a lot more. So كل الحاجات اللي بتحصل. So you have Rise Up, you have كل the large events are very interested in this دلوقتي. And thankfully corporates are getting in line. اللي هو احنا please.
Yeah. Sorry, I was going to ask, like, when you go, it's not just you speaking, like you bring on other people to share the different types of help and support that people can get.
Because I can only do so much. وبرضو my knowledge is limited في حاجات كتير قوي. But الحمد لله إن في ناس كتير قوي بيساعدوا. فدايما بيبقى في it's good to hear different perspectives. So ساعات كتير الناس ما بتبقاش عايزة تسمع الراجل. ساعات كتير ما بيبقاش عايزين يسمعوا لواحدة ست بس. But maybe the mix helps. Maybe people believe in therapists. But they're not very trusty of مثلا life coaches. كل حد بيبقى عنده البايس بتاعه المعين. But when you have a different combination of people, it gets the information across أسهل بكتير.
You talked a lot about like recognizing what we're struggling with and being able to call it something so then we can seek the support that we need or conversations وكده. And we talk about this a lot in Wamina and also in this podcast specifically, like the idea of language and narratives and discourse around different issues. And part of that is the language we use. So I want to ask you something about حاجة يعني we've been hearing a lot of, which is toxic masculinity. Within the work that you do and the experience you have as a male in our society and also someone that is advocating in the mental health space and that you've been through your own journey, what does this mean to you and how important is it to label this thing? Yani, tell me, what comes up for you when I say toxic masculinity?
So much. There was one specific program about this. إحكي was the sponsor of it. But it was specifically tailored للحتة دي. How there is the normal function of a man, what defines الذكورية. وبعدين في الحتة بقى بتاعت إنه when you overdo this, when you got this mixed up or بتبقى متلخبطة عندك الحتة دي, you become toxic. So أنت بقيت شخص مؤذي. And it's also very important to notice إنه when we say toxic masculinity it does not mean إن الشخص ده ماشي بيلطش في الناس اللي حواليه وبيشتمهم وبيزعق فيهم. Most of the time this person is so damaging to himself قبل أي حد تاني. Yeah. So when we're in a space where we don't have the normal array of emotions اللي المفروض تبقى موجودة عند أي حد. So I'm supposed to be sadness and happiness and joy and all this. But the only thing you're familiar with is anger. Because you don't understand anything else. زي بالظبط عارف المثال بتاع إن هو الرجالة ما بيشوفوش الألوان كلها. I'm not stating a fact أنا بس بهرج في الموضوع.
As an idea يعني.
Yeah. الستات بيشوفوا ألوان أكتر بكتير أوي. You're able to perceive a lot more colors. هي نفس القصة بتاعت emotions. Because the machine of emotions is not, or the muscle of emotions actually, it's a muscle, is not as practiced عند الرجالة زي الستات. Yeah. So anger replaces a lot of the things. It takes over a lot of the other emotions. So when that happens, كل حاجة بتبقى exaggerated in a very, very harmful way. So لو حد جه عليا في حاجة أو اداني أي comment, automatically معناه إنه I need to defend myself. I need to attack this person. And that could be my wife, could be my friends, could be anyone around me. Yeah? Because I'm a man. So it goes along with the new toxic definition of a man. So الراجل لازم يبقى غليظ جدا. ما عندوش أي emotions. يبين إن هو عنده فرط قوة أو إن هو لازم يعبر عن نفسه بعضلات بشكل وبطريقة كلام معينة عشان يبقى that perception of a man. The toxic masculinity side. المشكلة إنه it's very very specific to, I mean this could happen in ناحيتين بس maybe it's I would say it's a lot more damaging في ناحية الرجالة because the damage that we do to ourselves and to people around us is incredible. But it could be الناحية التانية برضو. If a woman is not dealing with her anger, if a woman is in that same space of not being able to be feminine, she will also have this anger. She will also express حاجات بعنف أكتر بكتير. هتبقى قافشة على نفسها وقافشة على الناس اللي حواليها. She's trying to be defensive.
Sure. I mean, toxicity can come from all different spaces and all kinds of people. I don't think it's also because toxic masculinity is so used and maybe overused, like we were saying before. It's not to say that women can never be toxic or harmful or not realize that that there are issues that they need to work on. But I think within the context of talking about patriarchy and systems that harm both men and women and things that we collectively need to tackle and to work on as a society, this is where I think the idea of toxic masculinity there's more of a spotlight on it, because as you were saying, that the amount of damage it can do, because already society is structured to center men and favor men. And within that context, if you're also toxic, then there's so much ripples of that damage that can be done.
And it's much bigger because the damage it creates cascades to everyone في المجتمع. Could be violence, it could be أكيد في discrimination بتحصل, part of the patriarchy. دي كلها حاجات that is very damaging للمجتمع. But I think a huge part of this is إن إحنا we don't have an established definition of what a man should and can be.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we're actually very distant.
Now. Yeah. Society is evolving and changing all the time. I'm going to say something related to this and tell me if you agree with it. I feel like women, by virtue of so many things, we were on like a monthly cycle. We have to live in societies that often are quite tricky for us to navigate and learn how to maneuver and do what we want within the restrictions and then get our freedoms in different ways. So we have learned to be more adaptable and to like evolve a bit more in the way we are, the way we perform femininity or go around life. Whereas because of the patriarchal systems, I think maybe men have to do that less.
Okay.
So when the world is changing and society is changing and relationships are changing, there's a bit of a lag of like evolve. We need an evolution of thinking of the definition of masculinity and of men and their roles in society. فالحتة دي محتاجة سرعة أكتر شوية because society is quickly changing.
Right.
Yeah.
أي بس نحل المشكلة الأساسية بتاعت إنه طب ما تيجوا يا جماعة نتكلم على هو الراجل المفروض يبقى إيه؟
صح.
What should a man be? What defines a man?
Right.
And how do you're not only in your masculine energy. So الرجالة عندهم الحتة الذكورية بتاعت I need to be practical, productive, I need to protect, I need to كل الحاجات اللي الراجل الطبيعي المفروض يبقى عنده. You're the caregiver, انت اللي بتاخد بالك، انت اللي كل الحاجات اللي متعرفة في الأساسي جدا بتاعت مخلوق الذكر ده المفروض يبقى شكله عامل ازاي. But there's also the other side, the nurturing, the taking care of things, الاحتواء، المشاعر. كل دي حاجات that are extremely fundamental to women, and actually in society it is a lot more important. In the origin of humanity, men are disposable, but it's women that are actually the incubators and the holders and the creators of life. It's amazing. But we have shifted this role to إنه هو الراجل أهم حاجة في المجتمع. So that has diminished or pushed back on the role of women. So by turn أو بالتبعية بتاعتها بقت إن في ستات كتيرة قوي مش عارفة تعمل دورها الفيمينين الطبيعي because they needed to replace الجاب اللي حصلت دي.
Right. They have to.
Yeah. So men should be able to go back to what is my role as a man. I should be able to provide for my family, take care of myself, express emotions, allow my kids to feel and experience كل الحاجات اللي بتحصل حواليهم في حياتهم بشكل طبيعي. I cannot let my anger or whatever emotions that I'm holding affect people around me, but also be able to have this comfortable level of feminine energy اللي تخليني أعرف أبقى راجل طبيعي عنده البالانس بتاع الاثنين. And in turn هيخلي الستات يعرفوا يعملوا البالانس من ناحيتهم برضه.
أنا for me as a debate كده to be honest, I get the framing of masculine and feminine energy as like, I get it. I get where it comes from and where it stems from and why it might be an easier like binary to place and to reference. I would prefer ideally, يعني إنه we don't have this necessarily definitions and labels of masculine energy, feminine energy and كده, and it's just about being able, all of us, to embody the different spectrum of emotions and the different needs that a society and our families and our partners and our communities require from us, regardless of this framing.
Right.
Yeah. But
okay.
يعني just as like an يعني
yeah.
بضيف يعني كده.
I agree with you
on that. Yeah. I feel like the overuse also of feminine energy and masculine energy إنه كده is maybe can go to a place where it's maybe harmful or having an adverse effect, because we're kind of in a way cementing the idea that women are nurturers and men are providers وكده, which is part of the patriarchal structures we're trying to battle. But I get that where we are as a discourse, as a narrative كده, إنه this is helpful to frame so that we can learn to tap into both energies. And I think it's really important that you mentioned not recognizing a large range of emotions except anger. And not really even recognizing anger as an emotion. So then you get the other problematic binary of men are rational and women are emotional. When in fact, men are quite emotional.
Yeah.
It's just the dominant emotion, as you were saying, often, unfortunately, is anger. And for some reason, that's not labeled as an emotion, even though it's quite destructive. But like, بس لو ست بتعيط كتير, you're emotional. Well, you're also being emotional. You're just angry. And anger is a very destructive emotion.
It's one way expression. Actually, it's very interesting because we've been through the debate of how actually ستات are more emotional than men. But in reality, biologically, there's no difference.
Yeah.
We should both have the same exact tools to be able to express and feel نفس levels of emotions of everything. But again, because a lot of men don't practice this muscle قوي, فهي بتفيد, ما بتشتغلش قوي. But بالعكس, in a lot of the families in similar في مجتمع زي مصر مثلا, you'd see the connection ما بين الأم وبنتها أقوى بكتير جدا جدا ما بين الأب وابنه. So الأب وابنه most of the time it's a very practical relationship. Most of the household. في ناس طبعا بتعرف تعمل ده بشكل أحلى. But it would be I'm going to give you money, I'm going to check on you and ask you مدرسة كانت عاملة إيه ولا هكذا from time to time. But mothers incredibly would be able to listen and to be able to be part of the conversation. So I'll go down to your level عكس ما أنا بحاول أطلع ابني الليفل بتاعي. So البنات من هم صغيرين بيبقى عندهم حتة إنه I can express, I can share stories, I can talk about anything من غير ما يبقى عندي إحساس إن أنا I'm too weak or I'm fragile or whatever. So it becomes more developed في الحتة دي, so they're able to express and feel a lot more emotions in that domain. يعني.
I think also building on what you're saying, the idea of being rational as devoid of emotion is also not زي ما كده emotion, like anger is not emotion, it is also being rational doesn't mean that you're emotionless. Because the emotions of people around you and the effect your actions can have on someone else's emotion should be a very integral part of the decisions you make on a rational level of what you do and what you don't do and what you say and when you say it and how you say it. فبرضو on the other side of rational, it shouldn't mean that it's devoid of emotion.
You should definitely have both and have the wisdom to know when to use what. So at this very specific situation أنا محتاج أبقى rational. I need to decide على حاجة مهمة قوي. I need to take care of something and I will allow myself to feel the emotions. But the disaster is when we were able to do the first part وما بنعرفش نعمل الحتة التانية. Our bodies do not forget what happens. Traumas and whatever stuff that we go through keeps building up جوانا and it causes a lot of the issues. And this is pretty much anger. So it's a lot of emotions that were not expressed or not felt enough. فبتفضل تcompile جوانا عشان هو في مصيبة حصلت بس احنا مش عارفين نعمل فيها ايه. And it's suppressed جدا جدا جدا. And it causes that much anger. And it's part of my, like a huge part of therapy was understanding where's all this anger coming from and just trying to get rid of that. I was a completely different person في الحتة دي. It's eye-opening to understand and oh my goodness, I just being through that, just being a man in this society puts so much pressure.
Yeah, for sure.
On not being able to share and express.
On that note, I think the idea of using labels and language and identifying things is so that we can work on them. So مثلا toxic masculinity, whatever you want to call it or label it as, the point of saying what it is so that we can work on it. And so how can, in your personal opinion, and not to speak on behalf of all men, but how...
I can't.
Yeah, of course. And we don't speak on behalf of all women or Arab women or whatever, for sure. But how have you learned to navigate the world and society, your friendships, your relationship, yourself even, with less toxicity, more positivity as a man, based on all the work that you've done?
Okay. And a good example of where a lot of men are دلوقتي كأن هم في حالة ضغط. عارف حالة الضغط it builds up so much pressure. And it's so ready to explode. It happens from time to time كده, there's minor explosions. But if that keeps happening, you're ruining everything. So we need to release that insane amount of pressure. So men need to be encouraged. I understand, wallahi. I know it's so difficult to take this responsibility, but if we're thinking collectively, if we're not separating men from women, if we're not saying this is your responsibility, we all want this to be better for everyone. We're not saying this will make women's health better or men's health better. This will make the society better. If our intentions is to make the society better in general, not just men in isolation or women in isolation, there should definitely be a collective part in trying to allow men to express emotions. So this is layer one. So if you know that someone around you is struggling, because we know, you can tell. You can ask people around you, you can check on people that are close to you. There is a responsibility. If these are your friends, your partner, your father, your whatever, you would know that this person is going through something. So there's always the question of, how can I help? So if you don't know what to do, just ask them. So most of the time people want to share, they want to talk. And that's the pressure release. This is very important. So the second this person starts to feel, no, I'm granted 1% of 1 millimeter of space where I can share and talk, stuff will eventually be up out in the open. And when that happens, we need to understand, and there's so many things that we can do to help. There's definitely therapy. This is very, very, very important. So if we keep talking and we don't know how to solve things, we know very well how to do that in a very practical way when we're going through حاجة في جسمنا physical. Yeah? And this is the language a lot of men understand. So لو أنا عندي مشكلة في بطني أنا عارف أروح لمين. لو عندي ركبي بتوجعني هعرف وهكذا وهكذا. It's the same thing. So it's also our job to be able to, there's so many providers حوالينا that can provide that level of support. So once you know and this person has reached this level comfortably, then you should propose حاجة زي كده. Maybe you should get help. Stick around this person until this man is able to admit, no, I have a problem, I need to get help. But providing the space and just listening is pretty much what we need most of the time. We don't need advice. We don't necessarily need someone to tell us exactly what to do. Most of the time we just want to let out كل الأنجر وكل الحاجات الإيموشنز العنيفة اللي حوالينا دي. So I think this is a very, very important step. Other resources of help, maybe sometimes distractions help. So be around the people that you think are struggling. So if you know this person is angry or going through حاجة, maybe sometimes asking إنه تعالى نخرج مع بعض أو تعالى نعمل حاجة, or I'm here if you want to talk, whatever works for that person. كل حد بيبقى حواليه حد بيبقى عارف يتعامل معاه ازاي بشكل أحسن. So this is also very important. والحتة بتاعت الستات اللي يمكن أكتر سنة من حتة الرجالة حتى راح أحطها بالشكل ده عشان in my world this is how it works أكتر إنه it's easier for men to open up to women. So maybe دي الحتة اللي هتبقى زيادة سنة بتاعت لو الشخص ده حواليه ناس كتيرة قوي في نفس الحتة أو مش عارفين يساعدوه. It is so much easier for women to take that role بتاع اللي هو you know what you can talk to me.
How have you redefined what it means to be a man in our society for yourself?
Interesting. أسئلة بتصعب. أنا حاسس الليفل عمال بيزيد. Like it's an upgrade بيحصل.
It is an upgrade. But because we're doing so well, so we just need to like.
والله عارف. دي اسمها إيه gaslighting بقى ولا emotion؟ فيها ليها اسم في الحاجات الجديدة. Wow, interesting. طيب honestly my journey has been very interesting في الحتة دي because part of my therapy was rediscovering who I am and rebuilding my value system. Yeah, بنcomplicate الحاجات أوي.
No, actually, this is get complicated. I feel like this is something that people, men and women, can really learn from. Like the redefinition of your position in society.
100%. So جزء منها was my value system مع ربنا. So well, to a lot of people, it's so much easier to go through mental health issues if they have a belief system. Studies show that. So it's very important for us to have that. And I, as a person, was someone who was very religious at some point. But in a state where I was not doing very well, I had no faith in anything. I did not trust anything around me, so I had to start from scratch. So in 6 months of my therapy in 2016, 3 months of it was about me redefining and re-understanding who I am as a person, what my values are, what I believe in. And that part, I think, is completely changed who I am as a person, which is extremely important. And a huge part of it was understanding الدين بشكل مختلف تماماً عن اللي احنا كنا شايفينه أو كنا واخدينه من واحنا صغيرين. So there's a lot of fear that is accompanied with how we were taught religion in our society. Yeah, I don't blame my parents, I don't blame anyone, it's just how it was. But to understand and see what it truly is and what the Prophet, for example, used to do as a man was بالنسبة لي كانت حاجة غريبة جدا جدا. I did not understand that this is the character of the Prophet, of the one person that you can look up to if you're following that religion, for example.
That those are not the stories that are predominantly taking the space.
I've never heard this before.
Yeah.
So he was very kind, he was very emotional, he would do this with his wives, he was very, very, very caring. حاجات كتيرة قوي that is actually in our society. To a lot of women if they hear it, to a lot of men if they hear it دلوقتي يحسوا إن هو أنا ما كنتش أعرف إنه بالنسبة لهم حاجة that is very mellow, that is not very masculine as it's perceived دلوقتي بالنسبة لهم. But this is the religion I want to follow. فبالنسبة لي that example, that role model of a man, and that is across, and it's not just that because I was ignorant أو ما كانش عندي معلومات كفاية عن الرسول زي ما كانش عندي معلومات تانية عن messengers تانيين وعن religious تانية. I was an idiot. I didn't know any better. فاهم قصدي؟ So it's part of my responsibility to educate myself. So I needed to know.
So for you, part of the redefinition of that had to do with the spiritual and the faith element in your life.
Yeah.
What other things do you think, like, yani, what are the times now, and if we're talking about changing the definition of masculinity, you have done a lot of work in that space on yourself. What are the times that you feel masculine that would not normally be labeled as such?
You mean the healthy or
the healthy, yes. Okay. The opposite of toxic masculinity.
Right. Okay. I genuinely think I am a much better version of who I am when I'm more grounded. كلمة كبيرة أنا عارف, but when I'm more in nature, when I'm more slower, this is very, very important. So in the rush of things, when there's so much things that are overwhelming أو في حاجات كتيرة بتحصل حواليا, I automatically, subconsciously كده برجع للحتة الprotective بتاعتي. You know what I mean? So I need to take care of things. I need to be very masculine. I need to dismiss emotions. So this is when I know إن في حاجة غلط بتحصل.
Right.
And I've reached level of awareness معينة where I can actually feel this في جسمي. So ببتدي أحس إن في لخبطة بتحصل. جسمي بيشتكي. There is something wrong. I'm not resting enough. I'm not sleeping well. في عك كتير بيبتدي يحصل. So this is when I understand في لخبطة هنا بتحصل. But when I go to the opposite side, and I can still do this in Cairo, يعني I can find a way to meditate, to pray properly, to connect, to be able to isolate نفسي شوية من العك بيحصل, أبعد نفسي عن ناس معينة, so I can actually be in that state where I'm more healthy in that manner, يعني. Yeah.
Do you feel like you're able to have healthier relationships, all types of relationships, يعني with your family, with your friends, with your coworkers, with a potential partner? حاسس healthier, like not perfect, but
right.
compared to before.
Short answer, yes. But also this includes or involves cutting people off sometimes. Yeah. So it's not just about trying to be peaceful all the time and embracing كل حاجة بتحصل حوالينا, but also it means I will be kind all the time, but I will also have boundaries في كل حاجة أنا كنت بعملها. And this is something I didn't do before. ما كانش عندي ال awareness دي قبل كده. So I would say that my circle of friends have completely changed in the last 10 years.
Yeah.
So I know إن كان في ناس حواليا that could be إن كانت الكلمة بقى toxic ولا ما كانوش they just didn't serve me very well back in the day. It didn't help me grow. And that is something that everybody goes through. كلنا عندنا ناس في حياتنا that's either pulling you down, that are very, I don't know, غصب عني هقول negative sometimes, that is just not helping you grow or become better. And I made sure I'll do the effort to do that. I want to be supported as much as I would be keen on supporting people around me. So I want to have this healthier relationship. So growing and becoming more aware will mean, you know, you'll not be kind with everyone. It just means, you know, you'll be able to put your energy where it serves better, where it's more meaningful, where it's appreciated actor.
I relate to that as well. I think the idea, like you were saying, you can be kind to everyone, but that doesn't mean that everyone gets to stay in your life in the way that they came into it or the way that you thought they would be. And that's a very hard decision to make sometimes.
Of course.
Yeah. Is there anything that you would like to add?
They've done a very, very serious study on mental health for Harvard. Very recent, one of the new things, you know, كل الحاجات اللي بتسبورت الناس go through mental health issues and they've ranked the importance of الحاجات دي حطوها in order. تخيلي ايه اكتر حاجة كانت بتساعد الناس ان هي تبقى احسن going through their mental health issues.
Can I guess?
Please.
Is it sleep?
No.
Oh, okay.
عندك 2 guesses كمان.
Water? Stay hydrated?
No.
No, I have no idea. One more guess. Family? Community?
عايز ندخل معانا الكون نسألهم كمان.
Yeah, we can take.
أنا عندي guess.
Please.
Working out, exercising.
Yes.
Oh, but it's because I hate
تخيلي؟
working out.
Bravo.
I was like, I cannot
Seriously.
do that.
This is one of the most moving. Just staying active. It's incredible. And staying active تحتها 50,000 حاجة. It could be a 5-minute walk. It could be a couple of hours workout. It is whatever it is that gets our bodies to disperse or نطلع الendorphins والحاجات to go through the day to become more resilient and more able to go through كل الحاجات. And in the same time you're actually taking care of yourself. So it feeds you في الحتة بتاعت I am actually doing this to myself. So self-love, self-appreciation مرعبة. So that is very, very, very important. So I don't take it for granted as much as possible. I try to work out to maintain that. It only started بعد therapy. I've never worked out قبل كده في حياتي. ما كانش في أي حاجة consistent. Second thing is obviously we talked about spirituality a lot, but this is very, 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 very important. I think if you tell me one huge difference between our societies today and how it was back in the day and like, you know, hundreds of years ago, it's our connection, you know, as a community. This is one, but also our connection to a creator or to someone that we have more faith or belief system in. This gives people so much more reason to be able to go through things, and it's so important. So being religious is one thing, but being spiritual is something else, which is very, very, very important.
Having that connection with something bigger than all of the little stuff.
Third حاجة, we've become very individualistic. So I think it is insane how so many people are lonely. It's the disease of the whatever the الألفاظ المستخدمة هنا is, but it is so overwhelming how many people could be very social, very, very out and about. They have so many friends around them, but they're so lonely. So we have to do the effort to regain that community sense again. الناس تاخد بالها من بعضها, بنعزم بعض على حاجات. We travel together. We do activities together. There's always people supporting people, and I think this is very, very, very important. Thank you
immensely for this. I learned a lot, and for me it was super interesting. So I hope the audience has some key takeaways as well. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Sage Takes Time. Please like, subscribe, comment, share, and tell us what you think. Share your journeys with us if possible. Don't forget to turn on notifications on the Wamina page so you can check out all our upcoming episodes and the rest of our content. It's good content, right? You follow Wamina.
Lovely, of course.
And you have to.
I'm friends and family over me, so of course.
Definitely. So yeah, thank you so much.